So look, I work with investors all along the spectrum, from first home buyers who are buying their first $500,000 home, through to seasoned investors who are building and scaling portfolios in excess of $30 million. And here's what surprises most people. Even the seasoned investors, we still find cracks. There are inefficiencies, there are missed opportunities, and there are things that are holding them back. But let me be real with you. If you're still grinding for your first deposit, then this video isn't for you. Not because it's too advanced, but just because it isn't your biggest bottleneck right now. And honestly, if I'm being straight with you right now, you don't need tactics yet. You need capital, consistency, and clarity on your income strategy. So if that's you, then no shade, but this video may confuse more than it'll help. But if you're already in the game and you've got 1 or 2 properties under the belt and you're trying to scale, this is where structure becomes make or break. Because as your portfolio grows, a bad structure doesn't just slow down your portfolio growth, it kills your options. Now I'm going to say something that might surprise you, especially if you've already worked with a broker before. Most brokers are trained to get you a loan, but most have never scaled a substantial investment portfolio. They don't know how to push past property 3, 5, or 10. I do, and I have. Over the past 20 years, I built and scaled a $30 million property portfolio of my own. And through Freedom Funding, we've had over $1.2 billion of finance conversations with clients over the past 8 years, advising on hundreds of active investor portfolios and earning over 150 5-star Google reviews from investors that are looking for more than just a loan. They wanted a framework that actually helped them scale. And the reason I'm telling you this is because in order to operate at this level, you need a team that thinks creatively, acts strategically, and understands the game from the inside out. That's how we help clients grow faster, avoid traps, and build real wealth. And a big part of doing that successfully is loan structuring, which is what we're going to go into today. Now, obviously, I can't give you the whole blueprint in just one video. I do have a deeper loan structuring guide, which I'll leave a link for in the bottom of this video. And regardless, this is not tailored advice, and I'd never pretend that it could be. But what I can do is walk you through a high-level framework, one that's helped hundreds of investors like you shift your thinking, avoid the classic mistakes, and structure their lending to scale, not to stall. If you're an investor looking to go further, or you're planning your next move and you want to get it right from the start, I'll leave a link in the description below for you to book a call. But anyways, let's get to the point of this video. Look, I know you guys love the juicy stuff. Asset selection, reno breakdowns, all the details around those off-market deals. My story from where I started to where I am today and all that exciting jazz. And yeah, that content's great. It shows what's possible and what's practical. But if your goal is to build a serious portfolio over time, that's not where the real leverage is. Because here's the part that most investors don't realize. You don't grow your portfolio by buying the perfect property. You grow it by having the right finance structure in place so you can keep buying. And that comes down to structure. Now, I'm not talking about interest rates. They go up and they go down. That's short-term noise. I'm talking about how your entire lending strategy is set up to scale, how your structure gives you flexibility, how it allows you to move when the opportunity comes up, without having to sell, refinance everything, or jump through hoops. Most investors don't think about this until they're stuck. They've got equity, but they can't use it. They've got income, but they've hit a serviceability wall. Or even worse, they've boxed themselves into a structure that looked fine at the time, but now it's working against them. That's not a strategy issue. That's a structuring issue. And it is the quiet reason that many portfolios stall at 2 to 3 properties, even when on paper, the investor is doing everything right. So if any of this is starting to sound familiar, here's what I'd say. It's not that you need to find a better property, it's that you need to think about the system behind it, starting with your relationship to debt. And that's exactly what we're about to go into. Now let's talk about debt. So for most people, debt is something to be avoided. It's framed as risky, stressful, and something that needs to be paid down as quickly as possible. And that mindset makes sense if your goal is to be debt-free. But as a property investor, that mindset will cap your potential. Because here's the truth. Debt isn't dangerous, bad debt is. Used properly, debt enables you to control assets that you wouldn't have been able to save up to buy. Good debt can build wealth. It's tax deductible and income producing. Bad debt slows you down. It's personal, non-deductible, and does nothing for growth. The goal is to shift from bad debt to good debt. And that's part of how you scale. Alright, so now we've talked about debt and how important structure really is. Let me walk you through something I see all the time with investors. I'm talking about mistakes. Not massive dramatic ones, just the ones that don't seem like a big deal at the time. But 2 or 3 properties later, those small mistakes have put a ceiling on their whole portfolio. So if you're sitting there watching this thinking, I've got the right property, the numbers stack up, why do I feel like I'm stuck? Chances are that it's one of these mistakes. Mistake number 1, not using debt to invest. Now you'd be surprised how often I see this. Someone with a good income, some savings, and maybe even a good level of equity, but they're still trying to fund their entire deposit for their next purchase in cash. They're not thinking like an investor, they're thinking like a saver. Mistake number 2, getting too attached to the family home. Now I get it, it's your family home. But the amount of people that I see sitting there with 200, 300, 500k of equity or even more, that's doing nothing for them. But that's dead money. You're sitting there on momentum, but choosing not to use it. Mistake number 3 is cross-securing without understanding the downside. Now this one's a sneaky one. It usually happens when people are doing well with their second or third investment property and the bank says, no problem, we can structure that up for you. But what they don't realize is, as a result of that, their properties are now all tangled together. You've got to refinance one or sell one, you've got to unravel the entire thing. It's messy, it's limiting. It's good for the bank, but not good for you. And it's completely avoidable with the right structure. Mistake number 4 is thinking that borrowing capacity is fixed. This is one of the biggest ones. People hit a wall with their servicing and think, that's it, I'm done. But borrowing power is fluid. You can restructure loans, you can go to different lenders. Some lenders look at things completely differently. Many people don't know what levers and options they have, and so they stop short of where they could potentially get to. But that's a topic that we can delve deeper into in another video. Mistake number 5 is focusing on the wrong things rather than looking at the big picture. Now, a classic example of this is interest rates. Now, I'm not saying that interest rates are not important, but I've had clients obsess over something as little as 0.2% on an interest rate, and that's held them back from buying their next property. Often people limit themselves and they don't think, what if there is another way, such as using a non-bank to buy their next investment? And you might think, oh, but what about higher interest rates? But here's the thing, sometimes paying a little bit more gets you a lender who can actually get you into that next investment property, or gives you the flexibility to move when others can't. And if, as an example, that helps you buy a $600,000 investment that grows at 6% per year, then you'll make that additional interest cost back tenfold. So here's the big takeaway. None of these mistakes are unique. They're just common. And once you see them, you can fix them. But the real problem is, most people don't realize that they've made them in the first place, and they limit their potential and wonder how others get ahead. And that's what I want to help you avoid. So in this next section, let's shift gears. Now that we know what not to do, let me show you how smart investors continue to grow their borrowing capacity, reduce risks, and keep their portfolio moving even when the banks say no. First, get the basics right. It might sound boring, but the most scalable portfolios are built on solid foundations. So that means reducing or clearing any non-deductible personal debt, getting your household budget and your spending under control, and making sure that your equity is being used strategically and not sitting there idle. You don't build a $5 million property portfolio from hacks. You build it from disciplined financial decisions that are repeated over time. Secondly, you need to keep an open mind around diagnosing solutions when roadblocks come up. Every investor will hit a roadblock eventually, and it's usually going to be either I've run out of borrowing capacity or I don't have enough equity. The difference between getting stuck and moving forward is knowing how to respond when that moment hits. Can you switch lenders to pull out more equity? Can you restructure your loans to unlock more borrowing capacity? Or do you go down the line of using lenders' mortgage insurance, even if it's going to cost you more? The answer is different for everybody, but the principle remains the same. You need to understand your options before you need them. Thirdly is to consider a non-bank strategy. Now this one flies under the radar for a lot of investors, but non-bank lenders can open a lot of doors where the majors can't. So let's say you found a $600,000 investment property. It ticks all the boxes. It's strategically located, it's got a good yield and good long-term potential upside. But your existing lender has said, sorry, no, you're tapped out. Now here's the question. Would you be willing to pay a marginally higher interest rate to secure that deal? Let's do the maths. 6% annual growth on $600,000 is $36,000 a year. Now at 80%, that's a loan size of $480,000. So if you were paying 1% more on $480,000, that is $4,800 per year. So would you trade an extra $4,800 per year to make $36,000 in capital growth? That is what a smart investor does. They look beyond the interest rate and ask, what is the opportunity cost of doing nothing? But the non-bank strategy only works if you have an exit plan. You don't want to be with a non-bank forever. You want to be able to refinance back to a mainstream lender once the growth and servicing permits. And again, that's where structure matters the most. So that in a nutshell is the non-bank lender strategy. And lastly is to set up an active debt recycling strategy. Now I touched on this before, but here's where it becomes really powerful. Debt recycling is essentially converting bad debt into good debt over time. You're eliminating non-deductible home loan debt while simultaneously expanding a portfolio that works for you. But the key word here is strategy. This is not something that you DIY off a YouTube video like this. It requires alignment between your mortgage broker, your accountant, and your financial goals. You need people that don't just talk the talk, but they walk the walk. People who are investors themselves and know how to execute. On the mortgage side, that is what my team do day in, day out. We've helped thousands of Australians finance smarter, build faster, and avoid costly roadblocks. And just to be clear, brokers are paid by the bank, not by you. So if you're planning a move or want to pressure test your strategy, I'll drop a link in the description below. No obligation and no hard sell. Just a quick call to see where you're at with things and if we can help further. So now you've seen the full picture. We've gone from the early decisions that quietly hold investors back, right through to the strategies that help you borrow more, reduce risk, and build a portfolio that works for you. There was a lot in this video. Hopefully it was clear, practical, and has given you something to think about. But just a reminder, none of it means anything if it just stays in your head. Take notes, rewatch it if you need to, and start thinking about how some of this stuff could apply to your situation. If you're ready to put a plan in place, something that's structured around your goals and helps you move forward properly, there's a link in the description. And if you're still in learning mode, all good. Grab the free loan structure resource or check out the full breakdown of how I built my $30 million property portfolio. That video goes right back to the start. What I read, the mistakes I made, how I rebuilt, and the key plays that helped me scale over time. Both links are in the description below. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, we're backing you on your journey.